Chapter 136. Yuna wasn't happy with the current situation. Although she didn't mind fighting Itachi and Kasame in general, the problem was that they were currently in the middle of a village. She wouldn't lose any sleep over the death of civilians if the other option was her own death, but the current situation is slightly different. The first problem is that Naruto is here and that he certainly won't be happy if innocent people get involved. Itachi also seemed to be rather reluctant to continue this fight, so the only problem is Kasame. Itachi is rather insistent on playing the bad guy, so I guess he can't just leave without a reason. Considering he and Kasame are wearing the same cloak, he probably joined some kind of organization since I saw him the last time. Guess I need to ask Jiraiya what this is all about when he appears. Let's get this started then, Itachi. Naruto, you can play with the fish guy. Be careful, his sword probably has some gimmicks built into it. Haha, of course, Nei-san. I already noticed that something was weird about it. Kasame, however, snorted in disdain. Aren't you overestimating yourself? It won't take me even a minute to shred you to bits. Although Naruto raised his eyebrow a little when he heard that Kasame said it shred instead of cut, he could only assume that it had something to do with his sword. Despite that, a smirk appeared on Naruto's face. Big words for someone who would have already been knocked out if his babysitter wasn't here to help him. Anger was clearly visible on Kasame's face, but this time he managed to contain it and not charge ahead, which caused Naruto to click his tongue in annoyance. Well, that didn't work. Guess I have to fight properly then. Wind style, raging wind armor. Just like during the Chunin exam, Naruto surrounded himself with an armor of wind and got into his usual fox-like attack stance, while Kasame only lazily lifted his sword and pointed it at Naruto. Itachi, who seemed to be ready to confront Yuna, glanced at Naruto and couldn't help but be surprised by what he saw. That is quite the powerful technique. He must have incredible chakra control to use something like that during real combat and not hurt himself while doing so. From what I heard, everyone in Yuna's little group is like that. How curious. Are you marveling at my little brother's technique? Pretty good, right? He came up with that himself. Itachi, however, only refocused his gaze on Yuna without saying anything. Not much of a talker, huh? Oh well, let's have a good old-fashioned conversation involving our fists, feet, and a few sharp and pointy things as well. No. Itachi is my prey. Only I am allowed to fight him. Yuna turned around and saw Sasuke mustering some strength to stand up. Although his chakra was still in decent shape, his emotions were going completely haywire and he had trouble breathing due to Itachi grabbing his neck a short while ago. Yuna rolled her eyes when she saw that Sasuke still wanted to fight Itachi even though he could barely stand. Seriously, Sasuke. It is time to wake up. While you were in the academy, people treated you like you were something special, but that time is over. You have entered the real world now and it is time to accept that the current you is nothing special in the grand scheme of things. Sasuke was almost shooting fire out of his eyes while he was glaring at Yuna, but she was totally indifferent to it. And you are saying that you are something special? Yuna chuckled when she heard that and shook her head. If the rabbit hole is as deep as I think it is, then I am currently nothing special either, but considering what is sealed inside me, I should at least appear on the game board. This statement genuinely shocked Sasuke. After all, Yuna would occasionally act incredibly overbearing while grandly announcing her ridiculous ambitions. The fact that she, despite that and the strength she has shown, didn't consider herself special truly shocked Sasuke. Itachi, meanwhile, was simply listening to the conversation. He was in no hurry after all and felt like this might actually help Sasuke become stronger in the future. He would, occasionally, glance at the fight between Naruto and Kasame and couldn't help but be impressed. Naruto was certainly not winning, since he was constantly being pushed back, but he was at least not going to lose any time soon. the three-tailed chakra mode that was combined with when chakra made Naruto incredibly quick, so instead of blocking Kasame's attacks, which would cause a lot of Naruto's chakra to be drained by Kasame's sword, he simply dodged everything that was thrown at him while occasionally sneaking in an attack to keep Kasame on his toes. I am special. I have the Sharingan. I am an Uchiha. I have the strongest bloodline. How could I not be special? Itachi returned his attention to Yuna's and Sasuke's conversation and wasn't sure what to say about what he just heard. Truth be told, Itachi was partially responsible for Sasuke having that kind of mindset. He wanted Sasuke to be fixated on him, so he would do everything he could to kill him and train as hard as he possibly could. That is why he told him that the Sharingan can only be beaten by the Sharingan. He wanted Sasuke to think that he was the only one that could kill him, but that seemed to have backfired splendidly. Sasuke was indeed fixated on killing Itachi, but instead of improving his strength, he seemed to have spent most of his time simply hating Itachi, while thinking that his Sharingan will do the rest of the work. Itachi was a very experienced shinobi, so he could easily tell that Sasuke's body was very far away from its optimal condition. Although Itachi wasn't sure what kind of training Sasuke did, he was sure that very little of that actually involved physical exercise, which was a massive weak point. Itachi really wanted to say a few words about that, but he certainly wasn't in a position to do so. Yuna, meanwhile, had a sneer of disdain on her face as she looked at Sasuke. Special because you have the Sharingan. Special because you are an Uchiha. Special because of your bloodline. Pathetic. If the only thing that is making you special is that two of your ancestors F***ed and a special mutation came out of it, then you are truly laughable. Just take a look at Rock Lee. He is nothing. No bloodline. No special power. He can't even use ninjutsu, and yet he could tear you to shreds within seconds. Sasuke was taken aback by what Yuna said but quickly came up with a counter-argument on his own. That is because he puts more effort into getting stronger than you. That is all there is to it. I know what kind of arguments you would like to make. He is older than me. Can you defeat him in 1 year, then? He learned a special technique. And you didn't. Nonsense. All of it. Stop acting like a child and put some proper effort into it. Sasuke couldn't help but be slightly dazed by Yuna's scolding. She said a lot of things and it would take him a while to properly digest everything. Despite that, he wasn't happy about losing the argument like this, so he was just about to retort when Yuna grabbed his arm with a smile that sent shivers through his spine. By the way, I would like to fight Itachi in peace without a deadweight by my side, so have a good flight and a safe landing. What do? Tilde. Without another word, Yuna pulled on Sasuke's arm, and moments later a seal appeared on him that would drastically reduce the gravity around him. Then, she tossed him out of one of the windows with quite a bit of strength and sent him flying away into the distance. Although Yuna wasn't totally sure, if her memory served her right, that should have been roughly the direction of where Konoha was. Yuna was rather surprised by the female-sounding scream but decided not to pay it too much attention. She could have sworn that Itachi gave her a thumbs up, but decided that that was just her mind playing a trick on her. Well, Itachi, now that Sasuke is out of the way, let's have some fun, or I guess not . Itachi was slightly surprised when he noticed that Yuna's face suddenly switched to an annoyed scowl, but a few seconds later he understood the situation. Jiraiya has appeared and was currently pressuring Kasame with Naruto's support. Seems like the jig is up, Itachi. How about you flee on your own so we can have Kasame? I fear that's impossible, so how about you just let us retreat unhindered? Nope, it's not that easy. Itachi and Yuna stared at each other for a few seconds before a sigh escaped Itachi's lips. In that case, you leave me no choice. Itachi closed his left eye and Yuna could feel massive amounts of chakra gathering in it. Oh? I wonder what is going to happen. Any idea, Kurama? Not really. I know that the Sharingan can unlock additional abilities, but they can differ quite a bit, so I have no clue what this guy's got. Too bad. Oh well, it seems like he wanted to use it on Sasuke previously, so let's see what he can do. Moments later, Itachi reopened his eye and met Yuna's eyes in the process. Mangekyo Sharingan, Tsukuyomi. Chapter 137, Inside the Tsukuyomi. Moments later, Yuna found herself inside a black and white world that had a crimson-red sky. She was tied to a stone cross and couldn't move her body or use her chakra. Despite the rather unusual situation, Yuna was rather unbothered. How curious, this is the first time a genjutsu properly affected me. Moments later, a sword was stabbed into Yuna's side. She looked at the culprit with some annoyance in her eyes. That was rather rude, Itachi. I haven't finished pondering yet. Despite being slightly rattled that Yuna didn't react to getting stabbed with a sword at all, he still had a calm face as he started speaking. This is the realm of Tsukuyomi. Within it, time, space, matter, everything is under my control. You will be trapped in here for the next 72 hours. Yuna absent-mindedly nodded her head as she sunk into deep contemplation, while seemingly not even noticing that she was currently being stabbed by swords. That explanation seems to be a lie. Or maybe you don't understand it yourself. Oh well. You have no control over my thoughts, and it seems impossible for you to make my body move as you wish either. At least not everything is under your control. It feels more like I am trapped inside an extremely powerful illusion. Maybe AH. I see. The illusion itself lasts only for a second, but it is so powerful that you can play around with time while inside of it, thus making it seem like it lasts longer. That would also explain how you could overcome my defenses against genjutsu. I have to admit that this is quite an amusing trick. Rather than putting someone under genjutsu and attacking them in the real world, you trap them in here to break their will through continuous pain over a very long period of time. Oh well, unfortunately for you, stuff like this doesn't work against me. It takes more than a few sword stabs to break my will. The more Yuna talked, the more strained Itachi's expression became, and as soon as Yuna finished her explanation, he couldn't help but look at her in astonishment. His first thought was that Yuna was putting on a brave front, but that didn't seem to be the case. The fact that she could calmly analyze what was happening made it rather obvious that she wasn't affected by the pain at all. Itachi gritted his teeth and changed the illusion to something else. This would increase the burden of using the Tsukuyomi, but if he didn't disable Yuna, getting away would become rather troublesome. Yuna, meanwhile, looked at the world changing around her with interest as her eyes absorbed every morsel of information she could get. Although getting repeatedly pierced by swords really didn't bother her, she would rather not have to hang around here for the next 72 hours. When the whole place was static, there wasn't much information she could get, but now that things are twisting around and changing, she could start analyzing the jutsu properly. A short while later, Yuna was still tied to the same stone cross, but this time there were multiple stone crosses all around her that had the same person bound to them. Every single one of them had a copy of Naruto bound to them that was getting repeatedly stabbed by Itachi. When Yuna saw that, she could only chuckle. Well, I am very protective of Naruto, but you don't really think that I would be affected by a mere illusion like that, would you? Others might be affected by the screams of their loved ones, but for me, the screams of these fakes are only useless background noise. Itachi knew that this would be the case for most people, but that is why the Tsukuyomi is usually such a terrifying technique. It muddles the senses of the person that is trapped inside and makes it impossible for them to differentiate between what is true and what is false. Yuna, however, didn't seem to be troubled by that at all. While Itachi was contemplating if he should risk changing the illusion again, a wide smile appeared on Yuna's face while saying a sentence that will haunt Itachi in his future dreams. Ah, so that is how it works. Before Itachi could understand what Yuna meant, the ropes that were binding her to the stone cross were loosened. Yuna casually freed herself from the stone cross and safely landed on the ground while giving Itachi a smug look. Itachi, on the other hand, had no idea what just happened. Yuna freeing herself from her bindings and moving freely was completely impossible. Even if Itachi himself wanted to do it, it would take him quite a bit of effort to do so. Although he had previously talked big and said that he could control everything inside the Tsukuyomi, there were quite a few restrictions he had to work with. There was a reason why he always had the people he trapped tied up on a cross while stabbing swords into them, after all. Haha, what a neat little trick. Your eye has a small independent space inside of it that resembles a mindscape. You project it through your opponent's eyes directly into the brain and take control over it for a very short time. Since you can freely control that mindscape, you gain some control over the opponent's brain as well, but I guess you can only affect certain parts of it. A normal person would be unable to endure the signals the brain sends during a time period of 72 hours in just a second, but unfortunately for you, I am different. In a previous life, cultivators would imprint their techniques into jade pieces to make it possible for others to view what was imprinted into them, simply because there wasn't enough paper in the world to write down the ridiculous amount of information someone needed to use high-level techniques. The higher the level of the technique, the more ridiculous the amount of information one needs to learn. Absorbing multiple books worth of information within seconds was completely normal. Although Yuna is currently far away from being able to perform such a ridiculous feat, she could still handle what Itachi's jutsu was throwing at her and even process everything properly. What made the Tsukuyomi so dangerous was that it worked almost instantly, but now that Yuna knew the trick, she could actively fight back and even manipulate parts of it herself. Especially since Itachi only seemed to have a rather rudimentary control over it. Yuna looked at Itachi and gave him a wide smile that had him step back instinctively, while cold sweat started flowing down his back. This is bad. No, this is very bad. Nis and tilde. Itachi mechanically turned around, and when he saw who called him, he completely froze up. In front of him stood a young adult woman. She had long black hair and black eyes and looked a little like a combination of his mother and father. Even without having seen the female Sasuke just a short while ago, it was rather obvious who that person was. An adult version of the female Sasuke. If that was all there was to it, he probably wouldn't have minded so much, but the problem was that this Sasuke was actually only wearing underwear. Black, tight-fitting underwear. This was made even worse by Itachi still having his Sharingan activated, and thus burning the image into his mind for eternity. Itachi and Nis and tilde, you promised we could play together. Let's play tilde. A cute pout appeared on the face of the female Sasuke, which was the breaking point for Itachi. Without a moment of hesitation, he took out a kunai and stabbed it into his own hand. Feeling how the pain helped him recover some of his sanity, he didn't pause for even a moment and started running away from the female Sasuke. His mind was already quite shaken from having to change Tsukuyomi's illusion and by Yuna easily taking control of it. If he were to spend the remaining time of the jutsu with a female Sasuke pressing her underwear-clad breasts into him, he might actually snap. He could only hope that Yuna couldn't manipulate the Tsukuyomi to such a high degree. Itachi glanced at Yuna and almost staggered when he saw what she was currently doing. Two additional women were together with her, and Itachi identified one of them as Hinata, who seemed to have discarded her klein name, and the other one as Anko Madarashi. Yuna was currently getting a lap pillow by Hinata, while Anko would occasionally feed some popcorn to her. Itachi could only feel dread when he saw that. She has enough control over the Tsukuyomi to do something like that. In that case, she is just playing with me right now. Damn, I just have to endure it, no matter what she comes up with. Luckily for Itachi, there really wasn't much Yuna could do to him. Despite looking rather casual, the illusion of Sasuke took quite a bit of her concentration to maintain. The illusions of Hinata and Enko, however, were rather easy to maintain, simply because this wasn't a situation that was thought up by Yuna, but something that actually happened a few times. Additionally, neither Hinata nor Enko were moving much, which made the maintenance even easier. If Yuna tried to inflict physical harm onto Itachi, she was pretty sure that the Tsukuyomi would simply end if she overdid it. It was still Itachi's jutsu after all. After a very long time, during which the female Sasuke accidentally lost her bra, the Tsukuyomi finally stopped and the Jua's consciousness returned to the real world. Itachi would curse at Yuna for what she had put him through, but he already spent around 70 hours doing so, which made it rather obsolete at this point. Especially the last 10 minutes, when Yuna made a female Itachi appear and had the female Sasuke and female Itachi make out in quite a few rather graphic ways, were adorned with a lot of rather colorful curses. Yuna, meanwhile, smirked at him and started speaking. Hee, that was fun. I wouldn't mind going for another ride. After he heard that, Itachi coughed out some blood. Whether it was due to the mental stress he has been put through or out of anger, nobody will ever know. What happened next was rather straightforward. Kasame appeared on the battlefield and moments later, Itachi and Kasame were fleeing the battle. Although Yuna would never admit it when someone asked her, she might have played around a little too much while inside the Tsukuyomi. Especially those last 10 minutes cost her a lot of mental strength. Naruto seemed to be running on fumes as well. Although Yuna didn't watch the whole confrontation, she at least noticed that Kasame's sword could apparently absorb chakra, which was quite powerful, especially if he is fighting someone that fights like Naruto who coats his whole body with chakra. Jiraiya, on the other hand, quickly chased after them but came back after a short while mumbling something about a fire-breathing toad and its stomach getting burned. Seeing that the fight was over, Yuna lazily stretched her back. Damn, the mission just started and we already met 2 S-rank missing men. Guess this will be more fun than I thought it would be. Jiraiya could only glare at her, while Naruto gave her a weak chuckle. He wouldn't mind if the rest of the mission is peaceful, but he somehow doubted that. Chapter 138, Watching a Movie. Itachi and Kasame were currently retreating towards the closest Akatsuki hideout, and while doing so, Kasame couldn't help but notice that something was off about Itachi. Yo, Itachi, what's wrong? Did you overuse your eyes? Itachi, however, was still thinking about what happened earlier and tried to find out why he acted the way he did. Now that he thought about it calmly, he felt like he overreacted, but for some reason, he also felt like he absolutely couldn't allow himself to be hugged by the female Sasuke. How weird, my instincts told me that I should avoid her no matter the cost. I wonder why. Did Yuna do something again to make me feel like that? I might have to go over the whole. Itachi. Itachi flinched a little when he heard Kasame saying his name right next to him. He was so deep in thought that he didn't even notice that Kasame was talking to him. Sorry, I was thinking about something. What did you say? I asked whether you overused your eyes and if that is why you are acting so weird. Itachi thought about it for a moment before shaking his head in denial. I did overuse them, but that isn't the problem. What is it then? Yuna Uzumaki is the problem. She is significantly more dangerous than we thought she was. Oh? I didn't see much of your fight, but despite being pretty strong, the male Kyuubi brat's strength more or less fits the information we got about him. Is the sister that different? Instead of saying anything, Itachi slightly moved his cloak and revealed a red patch of blood on his clothes. That first attack was much closer than it looked. If I had reacted a fraction of a second later, she would have taken out my heart. Kasame's eyes widened when he heard that. He was a bit far away, so he couldn't see what exactly happened, but he thought that Itachi simply swapped places with a desk and easily dodged the sword strike. If Yuna could sneak attack Itachi like that, then she could probably do so for almost everyone in Akatsuki if they were in the same situation. The same situation, in this case, meant that they were about to use a big jutsu and didn't know of her presence. As for Yuna turning his Tsukiyomi on him, Itachi would take that secret to the grave. Especially what happened after Yuna took control of the realm. As for Yuna telling people about it, Itachi doubted she would do something like that. First of all, it would be unlikely that people would actually believe her, and second, spreading a story like that would make Itachi her enemy and might even cause him to chase her down. Considering what Itachi has seen from Yuna so far, he was sure that she understood the reason why Itachi had joined Akatsuki and wouldn't want to become his actual enemy. Meanwhile, Yuna and Naruto were inside Yuna's mindscape. Even the two Kuramas were present. Unlike the normal snow-covered forest, Yuna's mindscape was colored black and white, with a crimson-red sky. Yuna and the two Kuramas were happily munching on some popcorn, while Naruto was currently in the process of suffocating from laughing too hard. All four of them were currently watching the scene of a half-naked female Sasuke chasing after Itachi. This is quite an interesting way to look at memories. Yeah, it feels much more immersive like this. I agree, but this isn't easy to do at all, so I reserved it for a special occasion. Wahahaha. Oops, will you look at that? Sasuke-chan has lost her bra. Damn, the way they moved made it almost look like Itachi was the one to remove it. Yeah, it took me quite a long time to orchestrate that properly. Fahahahaha. Oh? Why did a female Itachi suddenly appear as well? I think I have a pretty good idea where this is going. Haha, since controlling this jutsu takes a lot of mental strength, I only went all out in the last 10 minutes. This is what you are seeing now. Haha oh. What is the female Itachi goi? Oh. Asterisk whistle asterisk they sure are going at it, huh? I have seen worse and much worse, even if I didn't want to. Haha, there are only 10 minutes left after all. I should at least give Itachi a good show. What in the? Oh my god. Haha, that was quite a good show. If you get another batch of entertaining memories like this, we should repeat the event. Indeed, especially if it involves an Uchiha getting humiliated. Haha, sure, if I get anything good, I don't mind having another gathering like this. Do you want to watch it again, when I show it to Hanada and Enko? I would rather not be the third or fourth wheel, so I'm out. Same. Haha, all right. Guess I will leisurely enjoy it with my girlfriends then. Yuna took a glance at Naruto, who has been rather silent for a while now, and couldn't help but chuckle a little when she saw his face. His mouth was wide open, his eyes were red and bulging out a little, while a small trickle of blood was flowing out of his nose. He was still staring at the place where the female Sasuke and Itachi disappeared a short while ago. Well, that might have been a little too much. Ding. Individual Naruto Uzumaki's corruption has reached 100%. Host Yuna Uzumaki has gained title, Kin Corruptor. While Yuna chuckled a little when she heard what Yin Kurama said, young Kurama gave his other half weird outlooks. What was that all about? My coping mechanism to fight back the insanity, or maybe I already am insane and this is how it manifests. Oh well, it's something like that. Seeing the distant look in the eyes of his other half, young Kurama decided not to ask any questions about it. No need to stare into the abyss, after all. Yuna, meanwhile, was poking her finger against Naruto's head to get him out of his daze. Hello tilde anybody in there tilde? Moments later, Naruto woke up and checked his surroundings. When he saw the smirk on Yuna's face, his face immediately flushed crimson, and it certainly didn't help that the two Kuramas that were behind Yuna were smirking at him as well. Naruto quickly stood up and hastily walked out of Yuna's mindscape. Yuna chuckled again when she saw that. Hee, guess he has to use the bathroom. While Yuna was busy snickering at Naruto's plight, young Kurama gave his other part a look of pity, while young Kurama thought about throwing in another system message. Sasuke, meanwhile, was still flying through the air. It had only been a few minutes, but he had gotten used to the feeling by now. At first, he couldn't help himself but scream, and no, not scream. Roar. A manly roar filled with masculinity. When he realized that he was falling very slowly, however, he quickly calmed down. Since he got some time to ponder what Yuna said, he did just that. She said I should put more effort into becoming stronger, but aren't I already doing everything I can? Itachi said I still don't have enough hatred to fight him, but what am I supposed to do? What is holding me back from becoming stronger? Yuna mentioned Lee and said that he has no special bloodline and that he just puts a lot of effort into training, but that is obviously nonsense. He can compete with Yuna while she is using the Kyuubi's chakra after all. It is impossible for him not to be special. Even Yuna herself claimed that she is nothing special, but no matter how I look at it, that is complete nonsense. There must be something else. Something that is stopping my progress. Something that is reducing my hatred. If Yuna and Itachi could hear Sasuke's thoughts, they would, without a doubt, both facepalm themselves and then facepalm Sasuke. Itachi did indeed tell Sasuke that he needs to hate him more. Itachi hoped that this would push Sasuke to do everything he can to get stronger, pushing himself over the limit, but Sasuke instead interpreted it as you can only get on my level of strength if you hate me even more. Yuna, meanwhile, told him that he needs to put more effort into training, which Sasuke combined with Itachi's statement and came to the conclusion that he needs to put more effort into hating Itachi. As for Yuna's statement that he wasn't special, Sasuke simply dismissed it. If you are told for almost all your life that you are someone special, that belief won't crumble just because one person told you that you aren't. No matter how I look at it, isn't the problem Konoha? All that nonsense about fighting as a team and all these useless D-rank missions are holding me back, aren't they? All that time doing useless things could be spent on getting stronger, but instead of that, I am forced to rely on useless teamwork during worthless missions. Should I leave Konoha? But where am I supposed to go? For a moment, Sasuke thought about the seal that was put on his back as he sank into deep contemplation. Chapter 139, Finding Tsunade. Despite the last day's incident, Yuna, Naruto, and Jiraiya continued their journey in the morning of the next day. Jiraiya claimed that he had information that Tsunade was in a town called Tanzaka Quarters, but Yuna had her doubts about that. She was pretty sure Jiraiya was only guessing that Tsunade would be there because it is the Land of Fire's biggest gambling den. Additionally, to last night's fight against Itachi and Kasame, Yuna managed to infiltrate the small gambling house in Tria Village. Although Naruto's distress call had a bit of bad timing, it wasn't something that a quick shadow clone couldn't solve. As she had planned, after winning and losing a few rounds and seemingly not caring about money, someone important came and invited her to play with a few higher-ranked people. She considered just putting all of them under genjutsu but decided against it. Although the people of this little group certainly weren't good people, they seemed to have at least some morals. Although Yuna didn't have any plans for this organization yet, controlling an underground organization might be useful in the future, and she didn't want it to be filled with a bunch of mind-broken puppets. Anyway, after chatting with them for a while and some more gambling, Yuna won their trust and they gave her a small metal card that could apparently grant her preferential treatment in a few places the organization owned, which might come in handy. Should I let Akane investigate them? If they can even provide advantages like this, they might be a decently sized organization. Oh well, I will think about that when I'm back in Konoha. A few hours later, the trio reached the town of Tanzaka Quarters and, as expected, Jiraiya disappeared the moment they entered the town to investigate where Tsunade might be. Although Yuna considered doing the same, there was apparently a festival going on, so for now she decided to have some fun with Naruto. Well, all festival stalls that involved skill challenges were, for obvious reasons, not allowed to be played by shinobi, but Yuna and Naruto still enjoyed themselves by eating at every food stall they saw. After both of them were satisfied, Naruto went to their hotel, while Yuna decided to take the small metal card she received yesterday for a spin and see what it can do. Hee, I heard Tsunade loses pretty much every round she plays, so she shouldn't be too hard to find. Someone like that naturally attracts a crowd. With a small smile on her face, Yuna walked to the busiest place in town, the gambling district. Jiraiya, meanwhile, was quite disgruntled. The evening didn't go as he had planned at all. He has hit on quite a few women by now, but none of them have shown any interest in him. Am I getting rusty or am I just having a bad day? Well, I am obviously just having a bad day. After all, yesterday I easily picked up 2 women at once. Well, okay, one of them wanted to poison me to keep me away from Yuna and Naruto, so Itachi and Kasame could kidnap them, but well, that's still only 1 out of 2, so it's fine. Gehihi, what's wrong, lady? At first, you were boasting that money wasn't an issue and now you are acting all meek. That little money you have left isn't nearly enough to cover the bet you just made. How about you serve me for a while and we are even? Jiraiya felt that the voice he just heard sounded a little bit familiar, but he wasn't sure where to put it. What he knew, however, was that he would definitely help a woman in need, and that was certainly not because he was hoping for a nice reward. He approached the gambling house where he heard that voice from with righteous steps and quickly opened the door. He was just about to start yelling with righteous fury when he saw who the culprit was. Long crimson red hair and purple eyes. That was pretty much all Jiraiya needed to see to get a pretty good idea of who that person was. Without these 2 obvious clues, however, Jiraiya very much doubted that he could see through Yuna's disguise. Right now, her face looked like she was the female boss of a bandit organization, and she even had a scar over her right eye. Her clothes looked tailor-made, were extravagant, and seemed to be quite expensive. Additionally, 2 scantily dressed women were fawning over her and pressing their breast into her, while a third one was occasionally feeding her some fruits. To round up the picture properly, 2 mountain-like bodyguards with bulging muscles stood not too far away and were looking at the surroundings like hawks. Right now, they were glaring at Jiraiya like they were about to attack him at any moment. What the hell? Since when did Yuna become the boss of some kind of shady underground organization? Well, she at least looks like she did. Does Sensei know about this? No, that isn't important right now. I don't get the whole picture, but she is clearly threatening someone. This is unacceptable. Just when Jiraiya was about to walk forward yet again, he heard another voice that almost made him faceplant into the floor. Tsunade-sama, what are we supposed to do now? We don't have enough money to cover this bet. Tsunade. She is here? Wait. She is the one who is being pressured by Yuna. Does Yuna know that Tsunade is in front of her? Shit, this might be bad. Shizune isn't that obvious. This is bad, very bad. Tsunade will attack. Son. We will run away. Without another word, Tsunade smashed her fist on the table in front of her and turned it into dust, which blocked everyone's sight. Then, she quickly grabbed Shizune's wrist and started running away as fast as she could. Although Jiraiya didn't expect Tsunade to actually run away, he still reacted quickly and followed her, so he could get a chance to speak with her. Yuna, meanwhile, was slightly dumbfounded that Tsunade actually decided to simply run away. She hoped that she could coax a few more parts of the Senju compound out of here before that happened, but it seems like she miscalculated. Well, I let her win a few rounds to make sure that I could slip a few tracking seals in, but she didn't take any of her remaining money with her. Guess I have to track her down the normal way. Since she thinks that she is only running away from civilians, I doubt that she will put a lot of focus into hiding her tracks. Then, Yuna remembered that she was still acting as a bandit boss, so a vicious smile appeared on her face that sent shivers through the spines of the other people inside the gambling house. She thinks she can run away from me. Let's see how far she can get. Without another word, she stood up and quickly left with her entourage following her out. As soon as she found a quiet place, her 2 bodyguards and the 3 women who were clinging to her turned into ice and then simply melted away. I don't want my cute little Hanada to get jealous, so I have to provide the entourage myself. Besides that, I don't like random women clinging to me either. Despite that seeming to be rather outrageous coming from you, considering what I have seen so far, it might actually be true. Well, that is because it is true. If I know them, then the more the merrier, but if they're strangers, I don't want them to get too close to me. A smirk appeared on Yuna's face as she started following Jiraiya's and Tsunade's tracks. Tsunade Senju, ha? I am not impressed, but let's see where this will go. Now that I think about it, despite you saying that you hate no one more than Hashirama, you don't seem to hate the Senju clan. How come? Because the Senju are very different from the Uchiha. Although Hashirama Senju is a piece of shit and I will tear him to shreds every chance I can get, he, at least, is not a power-hungry maniac like most Uchiha. Madara found me because he wanted to use my power, and from what I have seen from the Uchiha clan, most of them are like that. Hashirama thought that giving my brothers and sister out-like presents could bring peace between the villages, which, let's be honest here, is completely retarded, but he at least had peace in mind while doing so. In conclusion, I hate Hashirama for his retarded idea, while I hate the whole Uchiha clan because they are, well, how they are. Yuna nodded her head in acknowledgement. Makes sense, I guess. Oh well, let's see if we can fork a coworker mandible. I'd convince Tsunade to become Konoha's Hokage. Chapter 140, Fighting Tsunade. Just as Yuna expected, following Tsunade wasn't too hard. After a few minutes of tracking her, Yuna stood in front of an old-looking building that was apparently a bar, in which she could feel the chakra signatures of Tsunade and Jiraiya. A smirk appeared on Yuna's face as she entered the bar, and as soon as she did, she noticed the group sitting at a table in a dark corner, drinking and eating. In addition to Jiraiya and Tsunade, a third person was present as well. She had black eyes and hair and clearly didn't want to be part of whatever Jiraiya and Tsunade were talking about, and was holding a small pig in her hands. A pig? There are indeed a few shinobi that rear animals to support them, but what is a pig supposed to do? Guess it has a good sense of smell. Maybe. Probably. Maybe it's just emergency food. Oh well, whatever. Yuna casually approached the table where the group was sitting, and as soon as she did, Tsunade's and Shizune's eyes widened in surprise. They didn't expect that someone would actually be capable of following them. Tsunade considered running away again, but quickly realized that there was no need to bother. Right now, they were not in public but inside an old and dilapidated pub. Whatever the person approaching the table wanted to do, Tsunade could just knock her out. Before Tsunade could do or say anything, an annoyed sigh escaped Jiraiya's lips. Is this really necessary, Yuna? Haha, not at all, but it is much more fun like this. Tsunade's eyes widened when she realized that Jiraiya apparently knew who the person who had taken quite a bit of her money was. She immediately glared at Jiraiya and was preparing herself to beat him up. Is this how you want to get me back to Konoha, Jiraiya? Coercing me through my debts? Seeing that Tsunade was close to attacking, Jiraiya had cold sweat flowing down his back as he quickly lifted up his hands to pacify her. Please calm down, Tsunade. I swear it isn't like this, and Yuna, can you drop this damn transformation already? Do you want to get me killed? Although it would be rather amusing to watch you getting beaten up, I guess that isn't really appropriate right now. Oh well, considering the way you are, there should be quite a few chances to see you getting beaten up. As soon as she finished speaking, Yuna vanished into a puff of smokes and reappeared in her normal appearance. Tsunade and Shizune couldn't help but gawk at Yuna. After all, neither of them could feel any chakra from Yuna while she was transformed and couldn't see through her transformation either. Jiraiya, meanwhile, could only smile wryly when he saw the reaction of the duo. I should probably ask how she transforms this perfectly. It would be an incredibly useful tool for infiltration. I wonder if she is even willing to teach me. Might as well introduce myself. Yuna Uzumaki is the name. Nice to meet YA. Tsunade's eyebrow rose a little when she heard that name. Considering that someone with the Uzumaki last name was traveling together with Jiraiya, it wasn't hard for her to guess who the person in front of her was. Minado's daughter, huh? Oh well, I haven't paid attention to what is happening in Konoha for a long time, so I don't really care. So, what is a little brat like you doing inside a bar this late at night? Shouldn't you be in bed by now? Yuna only snorted at the cheap provocation and immediately shot back. Well, if an old lady like you can use a jutsu to look younger and have fun, then I see no reason why I shouldn't do the same. Before Yuna could finish her sentence, a fist smashed into her stomach, sending her flying into a nearby wall. Who are you calling old, brat? Jiraiya, meanwhile, had cold sweat flowing down his whole body like a waterfall. Calling Tsunade old certainly wasn't a good idea, but he didn't think one little punch was enough to knock out Yuna either. Well, considering what he had heard about Yuna so far, it might even ignite her inner battle maniac. If Tsunade and Yuna were to fight inside the city, Jiraiya didn't think that anything of it would be left. Serves that damn brat right. A few days in a hospital show. This time, it was Yuna's turn for a sneak attack. Before Tsunade even understood what was going on, Yuna's elbow smashed into her side, sending her flying the same way as Yuna did previously. Haha, that was a pretty good punch. Moments later, Tsunade walked out of the rubble she has just been elbowed into while glaring at Yuna. Yuna and Tsunade were both completely unharmed, both having been punched through a wall, which wasn't surprising to Yuna. Considering how little of her chakra Yuna normally showed off, Tsunade probably assumed that she was just at genin level, so she adjusted her strength to that, while Tsunade was unharmed simply because it was very difficult for someone with the body of a 13-year-old girl to hurt someone at Tsunade's level, no matter how much Yuna strengthens her body through training. If Yuna used chakra though, things would have been a little bit different. That was quite a decent attack for a brat like you, I could almost feel it. Hee, I agree. My shoulders have been a little stiff for a while now, and a few more of your massage-like punches should do the trick. Let's see if your old body can handle it. Tsunade's glare intensified when she was called old again, and then she gathered quite a bit of chakra in her right fist. As expected of this world's supposedly best medic nin, her chakra control is pretty good. A wild smile appeared on Yuna's face as she started to coat her fist in chakra in a similar manner to Tsunade. She has heard and read about Tsunade's fighting style and could make a pretty good guess how she released her explosive strikes. Seeing her coat her fist in chakra only confirmed that theory. Although Tsunade widened her eyes in surprise when Yuna easily mimicked her technique, she decided not to think about that for now. She would beat Yuna up first and ask questions later. Both of them started charging at each other while pulling back their fists. It was obvious that they simply wanted to clash with each other's fists instead of going for elaborate combat strategies. Before their fists met, however, Jiraiya appeared between them. We are in the middle of the city, you show. That was as far as he came before two chakra-enhanced fists smashed into him. He clearly wanted to act cool and catch both attacks at the same time, but unfortunately for him, Yuna and Tsunade both dodged Jiraiya's block instinctively without even hindering their attack in the slightest. Jiraiya probably thought that both of them more or less had tunnel vision and that they were simply aiming at each other's hand without putting much thought into it. The result of that was that Yuna hit him around his waist, while Tsunade hit his shoulders, causing him to spin in midair like a pinwheel from the two powerful attacks before he crashed into the ground. Oops. Although both of them exclaimed so at the same time, neither of them seemed to be particularly sorry about what just happened. Yuna was just about to continue when the downed Jiraiya coughed out some blood and a few drops of that landed onto Tsunade. Yuna immediately realized the shift in atmosphere around Tsunade. Her domineering demeanor was gone and was, instead, replaced by fear and terror as her face grew paler and her whole body started shaking. Yuna's eyes widened in surprise when she realized what was going on. No way, she is afraid of blood. I guess she didn't simply lose her loved ones during the war but actually failed to save them. No wonder she doesn't want to come back to Konoha. Right now, Konoha's enemies will assume that Tsunade would come back the moment war breaks out and help Konoha, but if they found out that Tsunade could no longer participate in a war, Konoha would become a more interesting target. Thus she stays away to hide her weakness, or she just wants to drink and gamble her sorrows away. An annoyed sigh escaped Yuna's lips as she looked at the knocked-out Jiraiya and the trembling Tsunade. Her eyes landed on Shizune, who had no idea what she was supposed to do either. "Well, what was your name again?" Shizune was slightly startled from suddenly being spoken to, but she quickly answered Yuna's question. Sorry for not introducing myself yet. My name is Shizune, and I am Tsunade-sama's apprentice." Then she pointed at the peak that she was currently carrying. "And this is Tantan." Yuna nodded in acknowledgement and then continued speaking. "Let's get out of here. My little brother has already gotten us a hotel room. It shouldn't be a problem to get some more rooms, I think. You can carry Tsunade while I take the old pervert." Shizune wasn't sure if that was the correct decision, but after she saw Yuna picking up Jiraiya and walking away, Shizune quickly made a decision and followed Yuna while carrying Tsunade and carefully wiping away the blood drops that hit her body. Yuna, meanwhile, was a little pissed off. That damn old man. There is no way he didn't know that Tsunade is afraid of blood. Even if I were to bring her back, the chance of her becoming Hokage with such a fatal weakness is pretty much zero. Did he simply send me away so he could have a few days of peace? Did he think I could somehow heal such a deep-seated phobia with a snap of my finger or talk her out of it? Just you wait, old man. If you thought my actions were outrageous before, you better prepare yourself for what is about to happen when I come back. Hiruzen, who did not doubt that Tsunade had defeated her fear of blood years ago, sneezed loudly as a shiver went through his whole body. Weird, is Yuna plotting something again? Chapter 141, Naruto joins the dark side. It took a while longer for Tsunade to get herself under control, but when she did, it was rather obvious that she didn't want to be bothered anymore for today. Luckily, the group still managed to get a room for Tsunade and Shizune to sleep in. Yuna, who was still carrying Jiraiya, tossed him inside his own room and then went to her own. She lazily lay down on her bed and started to ponder what to do with Tsunade. What am I supposed to do here? It is not like I care who the next Hokage is, so I guess I can just fail the mission and be done with it. I don't want to tell her it is not like her promotion to Hokage needs to be done as soon as possible, so I can take her back to Konoha for now and see where it goes from there. Guess I should make use of the Uzumaki clan as well. If she lives with them for a while, it should be possible to slowly improve her condition if she spends some time with that carefree bunch. Just tell Naruto to do it. No clue how, but I am sure he will somehow manage to do it. Yuna couldn't help but chuckle at Kurama's suggestion, but when she thought about how he somehow managed to befriend Gaara, it might actually be possible. Oh well, we will see how it goes. For now, I will convince her to come back to Konoha for a while. Considering how much money I managed to win from her, that shouldn't be too hard, The next day, Yuna sat at a table inside the hotel's restaurant and was eating breakfast. The next person to appear was Jiraiya, who glared at her, but still sat down at the same table. No need to glare at me like this, it is not like I wanted to punch you. Jiraiya's glare intensified, but he didn't say anything about that. After all, he was the one that jumped between Tsunade's and Yuna's attacks in an attempt to stop them. A few minutes later, Tsunade and Shizune entered the room as well. Tsunade hesitated at first, but in the end, she sat down at the same table as Yuna and Jiraiya, while Shizune quickly followed behind her. While Yuna was enjoying her breakfast, seemingly oblivious to the pressure in the air, Jiraiya switched between glaring at Yuna and Tsunade, while Tsunade did the same with Yuna and Jiraiya. Shizune, meanwhile, seems to become more uncomfortable by the second. She clearly wanted to say something to ease up the atmosphere but had no idea what to say. A while later, Naruto entered the room as well and instantly noticed the awkward atmosphere surrounding the group's table. He immediately understood what was going on and approached the table with a smirk on his face. Yuna saw that and couldn't help but be curious about what he was planning. Naruto sat down at the table, greeted everyone, and then started to not so stealthily stare at Tsunade and Shizune. Although Tsunade was slightly surprised that Naruto looked pretty much like a copy of Minato, she didn't say anything about that and instead glared at Naruto. "What are you looking at, brat?" Naruto pretended to be embarrassed about being found out that easily and answered Tsunade's question. "Ah, sorry about that. I was just wondering if Nasen picked up 2 more members for her harem." Moments later, Tsunade, Shizune, and even Jiraiya did a spit take, firing tea projectiles everywhere, while Yuna and Naruto quickly took cover under the table to evade the onslaught. Tsunade was the first to recover. She glared at Naruto like she wanted him to burst into flames from her glare alone. "What kind of nonsense are you spouting, brat?" Before Naruto could answer her question, a middle-aged man that was wearing a suit approached the group while he was glaring at Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Shizune. "What is going on here?" Considering 3 people just spat tea all over the place, it was not surprising that someone from the hotel would approach them, but Yuna only rolled her eyes at him. She took out a stack of money and casually tossed it towards the person who just approached their table, while an aloof look appeared on her face. "We need to discuss something, leave us alone." Seeing the stack of money in his hand and the arrogant look Yuna was giving him, the man immediately understood the situation as an amiable smile appeared on his face. "Haha, of course, young miss. Take as much time as you need. Would you like a private cabin?" Yuna waved him away and he quickly left their table. While Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Shizune were rather perplexed by Yuna's sudden shift in attitude, Naruto could only chuckle a little. He was already used to Yuna freely shifting to personalities that would fit the situation the best. "What are you 3 so surprised about? If I can act like a bandit boss, naturally I can act like a noble as well. And Naruto, these 2 are not part of my harem, but the blonde one is Konoha's next Hokage, Tsunade Sanju." Naruto nodded his head in understanding and gave an extravagant bow towards Tsunade. "Greeting, Hokage-sama." Tsunade's fist smashed into the table, leaving a dent in it. Although the person who approached their table a few moments ago gave them another glance, considering how much money Yuna has given him just now, he could easily get a few more tables, so he didn't mind if one of them got damaged or even destroyed. "I am not the next Hokage. There is no way I want a title like that." Naruto tilted his head in confusion while looking at Tsunade. "Why not? Isn't being the Hokage really great?" Tsunade snorted in disdain when she heard that. "What is so great about it?" Naruto couldn't help but feel slightly awkward when he heard that question. Yuna asked him to convince Tsunade to become the Hokage, but he had no idea how he was supposed to do that. Additionally, Naruto himself really didn't think that being Hokage was such a great thing, making it even harder for him to come up with arguments to convince Tsunade. Naruto glanced at Yuna, hoping that she would tell him what was so great about becoming the Hokage, but Yuna only averted her gaze and instead concentrated on her breakfast. Next, Naruto's eyes landed on Jiraiya, who apparently also wanted Tsunade to become the Hokage, but he was currently busy ogling at a woman that sat on the table next to them. He was cursing them internally while trying to come up with an answer himself. As Hokage, you." Naruto let his eyes wander through the room and they landed on the person Yuna bribed just a few moments ago. A light bulb appeared above his head as he got an idea. "When you become Hokage, you are responsible for the finances of the village, so if a little bit of it got lost and no one would even notice it. A hidden village makes a loot of money, you know." Yet another spit take escaped Jiraiya when he heard that, but Tsunade's eyes actually showed some interest in what she just heard. "That isn't exactly false, I guess." Just how much money does a hidden village make by completing all those missions? If, let's say, around 1% of that went missing, no one would notice, right? It is just 1% after all. Just how much gambling could I do with that? I wouldn't even need to worry about my debts anymore. A few years as the Hokage and all those debts should be gone. Not bad at all. Naruto, however, wasn't done yet. Seeing the interest in Tsunade's eyes, he knew how to convince her. That isn't even all of it. The position of Hokage is one of the most powerful positions in the Land of Fire. I heard that you enjoy good alcohol. Just imagine what kind of good stuff you could buy if you actually became the Hokage. No. You probably wouldn't even have to buy it. Quite a lot of people would simply present you the good stuff to receive your favor. Tsunade's eyes shone even more brightly when she heard that. Good alcohol was expensive, but someone as important as the Hokage would certainly receive all kinds of gifts in that direction, especially if word spread that she liked being gifted alcohol the most. She almost started drilling just by thinking about it. Yuna, meanwhile, looked at Naruto with a weird mixture of pride and regret on her face. A single tear escaped one of her eyes, which she quickly wiped away. I really did it, huh? He was such an innocent child, and just look at him now. Now, he is the one that is doing the corrupting. I feel disgusted with myself, and at the same time, I'm really proud of Naruto and what he has become. Let us have a minute of silence for the loss of an innocent soul. Chapter 142, Trouble on the Way Back. Jiraiya had a really bad feeling when he saw the look in Tsunade's eyes. Right now, he was already regretting this mission. Now that I think about it, making Tsunade the next Hokage was a really bad idea. It isn't exactly a secret that she has a gambling problem. It is a really stupid idea to make her responsible for Konoha. Should I try to convince her that becoming Hokage is a bad idea? My mission is to bring her back to become Hokage though. What am I supposed to do? Tsunade, meanwhile, finished thinking about the offer, and a slightly greedy smile appeared on her face. Sure, I will become Hokage, but there is no way I will take the job for long. 2, maybe 3 years is all I am willing to do. That should be enough time to pay back my debt. Well, you can just push the job on Kakashi, or maybe start preparing a successor for the job as soon as you return to Konoha. Just spout some nonsense about you filling the spot until someone better is found, and that you are only taking it temporarily and it should work out smoothly. Tsunade eagerly nodded her head and looked at Naruto with some appreciation. Not bad, brat. How about you become the Ho? No, thanks. I'm fine. She glared at Naruto, and then her eyes landed on Yuna, who could only roll her eyes. Don't even think about it. Jiraiya, meanwhile, really didn't know what to make out of this situation. The prestigious position of Hokage was currently being pushed around like it was a hot potato. Although Jiraiya wanted to argue that handling the title like this was inappropriate, considering he didn't want it either, he really had no ground to stand on. He has seen the mountains of paperwork Hiruzen has to deal with and really didn't want anything to do with that. He could only hope that Konoha will survive Tsunade's reign and that someone appears that actually wants the position. Since no one in the group had anything left to do in the city, they decided to make their way back to Konoha, and while doing so, Jiraiya told Tsunade what had been happening in Konoha up until now. Tsunade couldn't help but look at Yuna and Naruto in disbelief when she heard about what happened during the Chunin exam. She especially couldn't help but look at Yuna with suspicion in her gaze when Jiraiya mentioned that Yuna could use Ice Jutsu. How in the world do you have an Ice Kike Genkai? No matter how I look at it, that is completely impossible. Neither Minato nor Kushina had even the slightest bit of shared blood with the Yuki clan. You being able to use ice is impossible. Yuna, however, only snorted at that statement with disdain. If I couldn't use ice, then no one could. I don't know why people are always bringing up the Yuki clan when they see my ice, but I guarantee you that I have nothing to do with them. My ice is special and only I can use it. Jiraiya nodded his head when he heard that. Yeah, that seems to be the case. From the reports I have heard, it almost seems to be alive and actively trying to freeze more ground without any input from your side. My ice is, indeed, rather gluttonous. Seeing the confused look on Jiraiya's and Tsunade's faces, Yuna couldn't help but chuckle. She wouldn't tell them anything concrete about how her ice worked, but dropping a few hints here and there was rather amusing to her. She was just about to continue teasing them when her head snapped into a certain direction and a wide smile appeared on her face. Seems like this mission isn't over yet. Ambush ahead. A total of 6 people. One of them is probably Orochimaru. The other people in the group widened their eyes when they heard that and got ready for battle. Moments later, Jiraiya's and Tsunade's eyes widened in surprise and wanted to push Yuna away, but she only dodged their attempts, while I started to cover her right hand. It shot forward and grabbed a huge golden arrow just when it was about to pierce her shoulder with her ice-coated hand. That is quite the impressive attack distance. This material is rather interesting as well. Looks like something an insect would use to build its nest. How curious. Yuna crushed the arrow with her hand, and moments later, Orochimaru and 3 other people appeared in front of the group, while 2 more people stayed hidden in the surroundings. Yuna couldn't help but raise her eyebrow a little when she saw the person with gray hair and black glasses who was part of the group. I don't really remember his name, but shouldn't that guy be in Konoha's prison? I guess he got out during the invasion, but is it really that easy to get out of Konoha's prison? Maybe I should make an offer to Konoha for the Uzumaki clan to upgrade the seals around the prison. Thoughts for later, I guess. The other 2 men were one huge guy with 3 patches of orange hair on his head and one guy with long, light blue hair that was covering one of his eyes. Yuna noticed, with some interest, that the second guy actually had 2 slightly different chakra signatures, which was not something she has felt before. Orochimaru approached Yuna and her group with confident steps and eyed every single one of them like they were his prey, which Yuna found slightly amusing. He already got his ass kicked twice. I really wonder where all this confidence is coming from. Well, seems like he, at least, managed to heal his arms, which, considering that weird self-birth technique, isn't too surprising, I guess. Kukuka, so we meet again, Jiraiya, Tsunade. Although I expected Jiraiya, I wasn't expecting to see you as well, Tsunade. Oh well, this just makes it easier for me. 2 birds with 1 stone, I believe it was called. Tsunade frowned when she heard what Orochimaru just said. Although she didn't fully understand the situation, it seems like he wanted her for something, which she wasn't too happy about. Jiraiya had already told her what Orochimaru tried to do with Konoha, and although she certainly didn't have any good feelings for the village, that didn't mean that she would help someone to destroy it. What do you want, Orochimaru? We might have been in the same team a long time ago, but don't think that I am not willing to kill you here and now. Orochimaru, however, only chuckled when he heard that. Now, no need to be so aggressive. I actually have quite a good offer for you, but you are not the main reason why I am here. Orochimaru's eyes wandered over the whole group before coming to a stop on Yuna. I want you. You are the reason why I am here today. No matter how much I think about it, I just can't understand how you are capable of using ice jutsu. That is why I need the person itself to solve that mystery. Before anyone could say anything more, Yuna stepped forward and did a minuscule bow towards Orochimaru. I am happy that you managed to gather the courage to confess your feeling to me, but, unfortunately, I have to reject your confession. Although I am not entirely sure about your gender, I am really not fond of your personality, so I guess that doesn't really matter anyway. Sorry about that. An awkward silence descended onto the battlefield, which was only interrupted by the weird noises Naruto was making while trying to suppress his laughter. Chapter 143, Fighting the Sound 4. A frown appeared on Orochimaru's face when he heard Yuna's taunt. What irritated him wasn't the taunt itself, but that Yuna didn't seem to take him seriously at all. Even Jiraiya put his guard up when he appeared, and yet Yuna doesn't seem to care at all. There should be a limit to how arrogant someone can be, but your arrogance seems to have no bounds. Yuna couldn't help but chuckle when she heard that while nodding her head. Hee, I am indeed boundless. But I wonder what you are acting all smug for. The last 2 times we met you got your ass kicked. Do you get some kind of prize after getting your ass kicked 3 times in a row or something? Why are you so eager to fight? Orochimaru's frown deepened even further while he got into an attacking stance. He decided to stop the useless banter. Get the girl, you can kill the rest if necessary. You don't have to worry about Tsunade, she won't be able to fight. Yes, Orochimaru-sama. Yuna could feel another arrow being fired, but this time it was aimed at Naruto, who only sidestepped a little to evade it. Jiraiya, meanwhile, stepped in front of Yuna and started to charge at Orochimaru, which Yuna found a little disappointing because she would have liked to fight him on her own. Yuna scanned the people in her group and could only shake her head when she saw that Tsunade was about to attack Orochimaru as well. Seriously, Tsunade, just sit back and relax. We both know that you are in no condition to fight. It's just a bunch of small fry, so no need to worry about it. Although Tsunade wanted to argue back, the only thing she could do was clench her fists while glaring at Yuna, which caused Yuna to roll her eyes at her. You can glare as much as you want, but who are you calling a small fry? While Yuna was talking with Tsunade, the person with blue hair had approached Yuna and was currently punching towards her. Yuna casually evaded the attack and backhanded him into the face, sending him flying away. I am calling you a small fry. I have to admit that the way you blocked my attack was rather interesting, though. The person with blue hair had 2 additional arms growing out of his chest that blocked Yuna's backhanded strike. He saw the 2 arms that blocked the attack shaking in pain, and a deep frown appeared on his face. Moments later, black markings appeared all over his body, while his chakra level increased. Guess we have to take this seriously, Yukon. Another head grew out of his neck, that also had black markings appearing all over it. Indeed, Seikan. Be careful, she has a lot of physical strength. Yuna, meanwhile, looked at the weird duo and couldn't help but be slightly intrigued by what she saw. This world sure is a strange place, huh? I heard about 2 people being connected, but this is just ridiculous. That one guy is literally growing out of the other. How does that even work? A pillar of ice shot out of the ground behind Yuna and blocked a huge club that was being swung at her by a weird-looking creature that wore black clothes and had its eyes covered by its own hair. Yuna smashed her fist into the creature's stomach and sent it flying towards 2 other creatures that were trying to attack her, knocking all 3 of them back. Hee, you didn't think I wouldn't notice you, did you? By the way, you look a little like an Uzumaki. Are we related? Yuna's eye fell on a girl with long, red hair that was currently playing the flute quite far away from the actual battlefield. She guessed that those 3 weird-looking creatures were controlled by the music the girl was making with the flute, which Yuna found slightly interesting. She felt that controlling not 1, but 3 creatures with sound alone couldn't be easy. Naruto, meanwhile, faced the huge person with 3 orange patches of hair on his head with a slightly bored expression. Well, no offense or anything, but I am not really interested in this fight. Mind giving up? The moment Naruto finished speaking, his opponent put both of his hands on the ground, and moments later, the earth started to rise around Naruto. Earth Release Barrier, Earth Prison Dome of Magnificent Nothingness, author note, literally took the name from the wiki. Canon Naruto is a Shanxia, confirmed. You shouldn't have spoken so arrogantly. Now, you will die by having all of your chakra taken from you. Naruto looked at the dome surrounding him with some doubts in his mind. He could, indeed, feel that his chakra was being absorbed, but it would take more than a day for him to reach a critical level of chakra depletion. He scanned the Earth Dome and realized that the whole thing was infused with chakra, with his opponent as the source. Then, he threw a punch at the Earth Dome, leaving behind an imprint of his fist that regenerated itself after a short moment. I see, this dome is suffused with chakra to make it sturdier and to make it possible to regenerate itself. I guess that means that it is the least solid on the opposite side of where my opponent stands, huh? Naruto walked around the dome for a short while before he reached the position he thought would be the most fragile. He took out his two knuckle dusters and got into a punching stance. What are you doing, Naruto? I have never seen you use a stance like that. Shut up, I am trying to concentrate here. You just want to act cool, huh? Shoot up. Ha ha, I knew it. With an annoyed scowl on his face, Naruto punched towards what he thought would be the Earth Dome's weak point and pierced straight through it, causing the whole dome to collapse. Well, that was pretty easy. The moment the dome crumbled, Naruto dodged to the side, evading yet another arrow that was shot at him from the distance. That archer guy sure is annoying, huh? Guess I have to send a few shadow clones after him, so he won't bother me too much. Seems like I have underestimated you. My name is Jirobo and I am the one that will kill you today. Creepy-looking, black marks started to appear all over Jirobo's body, and afterward, his whole body started to transform. His skin became brown, while his hair became longer. Additionally, warts started to appear all over his upper body. Naruto frowned when he saw that transformation. After all, the black marks looked rather similar to Sasuke's, especially in the way they spread. Can Sasuke transform like this as well? When I looked at the seal together with Nasen, I didn't see a function like that, but who knows what kind of mutation that thing went through while I wasn't looking. His power level increased quite a bit after activating that seal. I wonder if all of Orochimaru's Bumbud *** minions can transform like that. Might be useful to capture a few of them alive to devise a counter-strategy. Moments later, Jirobo appeared before Naruto and punched towards his head. Naruto noticed the strength of the attack and couldn't help but be a little impressed. He powered up quite a bit after he activated the seal. I wonder how long he can keep it activated. Naruto's eyes turned red as he let a bit of Kurama's chakra flow into his system, and afterwards, he leisurely lifted one of his hands and easily blocked the attack that was thrown at him, causing Jirobo's eyes to widen. You didn't really think a simple curse mark would be enough to compete with the Kyuubi's chakra, did you? Naruto slightly tilted his head, evading yet another arrow, before smashing his fist into Jirobo's stomach, sending him flying towards the person who has been harassing him with arrows for a while now. Well, I would like to catch you alive, so how about you give up and nobody gets hurt? As soon as Naruto got closer to where Jirobo landed, massive amounts of projectiles were shot at him from everywhere. Naruto, however, only coated himself in red chakra, causing all the projectiles to harmlessly bounce off of him. Yeah, I thought you would answer like that. Oh well, guess it's time for a beating.